so the deception from the dragon or the serpent came through one question. You know what it was?
You know, it's on the tip of my tongue, but you're going to have to tell it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. So even when Jesus is saying this in New Testament terminology, he says, you know, the enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
But I've come that you might have
Life abundant.
life
Yeah.
and life abundant.
But it feels like sometimes there's this limiting belief we have even on accepting the abundance that God has for us.
God spoke to me like, not only did I make a way of redemption through the cross, and I promised that at the curse, okay, that was, I'm going to curse you now to experience the death that I promised you would.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to give you a way towards life. And the path to that is a better question. And in as much as one bad question that centers on deprivation can produce rebellion, shame, blame, and death, one good question can produce life and abundant life.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Rising Tide podcast. Man, we're so excited that you're here. This is going to be a good one today. My name's Austin Samuelson, and I've got my really good friend, Matt Carpenter, here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah. Guys, this is going to be good. This is really exciting. We're going to discuss a topic today that we've talked a lot about over the past year and a half. And it's really something, Matt, that I would say, man, I just see lived out in your life. And it's one of those things that you see, and I don't know if you guys can resonate with this, but you see a quality someone has or a characteristic that they have, and you're like, man, I want that. I want that to be said of me. I want to believe that. I want to live that way. And I've seen that. It comes off of you and Kiki and your boys, the way that you guys approach life. And so I'm excited about talking about this today because it's really changed me, and I would say I'm very much on the journey, and so I've got a lot of questions today that I want to hit you with, and talk about this because this is the podcast for guys who are trying, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to be more like Jesus. We want to love our wives and our kids better, and so I'm super excited. We're going to talk about abundance today.
Love it.
And so Matt, you know. For all of us, how would you describe abundance and what the alternative to that is deprivation, right?
Yeah.
How would you? What's the principle that we're going to circle around?
Yeah, I think, you know, like you just said, Austin, it's something that I think if we're talking about it just academically, we're missing out on all of it. And so the experience or the life of abundance lived out, it's incredible, and it's actually what God's made us for. And so I think there, like so many other things, I think it's good to start at the beginning. That is like what was God's plan and what was His plan for us as humanity, and in that I think we can see how we've gotten away from that, and probably can equate every problem we see in society back to just a deviation away from the way that God intended us to live in the garden. And so, you know, the principle of abundance versus deprivation starts in the garden. And definitely in all of the story of creation, God is saying some big things about Himself first, but then also big things about us and how we're made to relate to Him, how we're made to relate to each other, and then how we're also made to relate to the world that's around us. And I think all of that could be summed up in God wants us to live lives of abundance. And so even if we look at the creation story, it starts off with darkness and then God being there and then moving to bring out of darkness to bring light. And then also probably we could say there's a progression that is to go from chaos into order. And you know the whole biblical narrative starts off with this poem that continually repeats the cycle that is, and then there was evening and there was morning, and that was day one, and God said it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, and that was day two, and God said it was good, evening, morning, day three. Now in the declaration of good, now I know that that's a word in our society has lost its meaning. Really, even there's we homeschool our kids, and so the writing program that they're part of says that they can't even use the word good anymore. It's like a banned word, right? And the reason why they say it is because we've lost the meaning of it. So even if we go back to talk first about what is the biblical meaning of good, good meant God finite. That God took who he was infinitely and eternally, and in creation, he made himself somehow finite. He limited himself for the purpose of giving us access to him as finite beings, okay? And so when God says it's good, he's basically just saying, that's me. But it's not all of me. Like, all of me is infinite. All of me is eternal. But I'll take an aspect of who I am and I'll manifest it in the three-dimensional world in a way that you can experience it. And so when I do that, the thing I call that good. So good, when you add the extra O to God, it becomes good. And that's God finite. And so in everything that God said was good, God was surrounding humanity with everything that we needed and everything that we desired. And I know we even talked last time that so much of it is about starting with pure desire. Like, what are those desires that God put inside of us? And did he give us a way to fulfill those eternally? And he definitely did. And so the principle of abundance is that God has made us to experience him, okay? And experience him in every area of our lives, not just in one area of our lives, not just in devotional times, not just as we read the Word of God, not just as we attend church on Sunday, but God made us to experience him in every part of our lives. And not just experience him, but basically broadcast him, right? Like, so even from the very beginning, it was this thing that is, I'm making this because I've put desires inside of you that I want to also meet those desires. And as those desires that you have are met, they will also somehow reproduce more, right? And so God made trees, and he made them fruit-bearing. Why? Well, because God put inside of us the desire for food, for nourishment. And the experience in the moment of looking at the food, it says it was pleasing to the eye, smelled good, it was pleasing to the nose, and tasted good, it was pleasing to the mouth, right? And so even that, like, speaks to God's abundance. That was, I'm going to put inside of you a desire for food. And then in that, I'm going to please you with it. And when you eat it, it will give you nourishment to go along with the pleasure, okay? And it will produce more energy for you. But then even when you throw it down, if you think about, and for me, like, Austin, my favorite fruit is mango. Okay. I mean, I like lots of fruits, but like I really love mangoes in any form. Okay, like I like mango juice. I like dried mangoes. I like fresh mangoes. I like not quite ripe mangoes with a little bit of sugar on them. You know, like you go around the world, you can eat mango in a lot of different ways. Okay, and so I love mangoes. So I definitely think in the garden there were mangoes. Okay, like, and certainly in my garden there would be mangoes. And I think about it, you know, like the bounty that's in a mango tree. It describes the abundance of God that was, even when they ate of it, they smelled it, they looked at it, it was beautiful. But then even when they threw it down, then what would happen? Well, out of what was thrown down into the ground, then after a little bit of time, what comes out? Another mango tree that produces an abundance of mangoes. And so, like, this system that God created, it surrounds us everywhere. In God's created world, it declares abundance. But there was a question that was put towards God's abundance, and it was a question of deprivation. Okay, and so if we think about what was the experience of Adam and Eve, not just with fruit trees, but what are the things that God put in their lives for them to experience and to have pleasure in?
Well, they had each other.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You
right?
know?
Yeah, and even as God goes through, he's like, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. The only thing he says is not quite good.
When Adam was alone.
Yeah, he says, it's not good that you're alone. And in that, I don't think it's exactly right to say that what he was saying was you need another man, because otherwise God would have just taken from the dirt again, which is what he made kind of everything from. It was first dirt, took from the dirt, made man, made all the trees, animals. But he doesn't take from the dirt. He then takes from man, right?
Yeah.
He takes out of the rib of man. And in that, he divides his image. And instead of saying it's now Adam and Steve, like you need a buddy in this, he takes his image and he divides it, right? And he makes masculine and feminine that are, when they come together, then they then reflect the image of God, or they embody the image of God. Yeah. And then, of course, what we know is like when they come together, even when we come together with our wives, we make more images, which you and I are both pretty good at making more images.
We've done okay.
Yeah, we've done all right. We got 9 kids between us. And so, but really the point of that would be, again, it's abundance that then declares the image of God, right? Yeah. And that happens definitely between a man and a woman. Yeah. That God put inside of us the desire for a woman, and both in the beauty of her, but even also in the sexual desire that we have. Like God put attraction inside of us, and frankly, I think that's something that's worth talking about. Yeah. That is a part of God's abundance. Yeah. And man, like I didn't grow up in church, but definitely once I got into church, I think especially as a young man, like that was a desire that I felt like I was supposed to, like, it was like bad.
Yeah. Don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it. Don't feel it.
Yep.
And that's, if you do, it's for sometime way later. Okay. Right. And that, I mean, as a young man, that feels like forever, you know, like it's like, once you get married, it's like, gosh, like that's like at least an eternity away. Right. And so, but God put inside of us these desires for each other. And one expression of that would be marriage. Another one would be absolutely brotherhood, you know, that like God also doesn't want us to be alone, in community that extends beyond our home. And God definitely made us for that. And he put that in the garden. Yeah. What are other desires, or what other things did abundance look like in the garden? Well,
he put Adam in charge of the animals, right? And told him to name them. And, so there was authority that was given, right?
Absolutely.
So it wasn't just sit there and be like all the other animals. He put Adam in authority.
Yes,
over the animals,
and he even says over Adam, I want you to have dominion.
Yeah.
Which had to do with authority, power, and even probably production, although I think that can probably go a little bit too far. We can probably, as men, get focused too much on the production side of it, rather than the authority side of it. And that's probably food for another podcast eventually, to kind of have the conversation of how do you go from a place of ownership to a place of stewardship, and how do you live like that? But definitely, like, to me, if we walk through all of the felt needs of mankind, okay, which I think uniquely they probably all start with a P, if you want to say it that way, okay? Like, what do we have a desire for? Yeah. Well, we have a desire for presence, that we want to be present with somebody. We want to be known and know them. It's like the desire for intimacy. Yeah. I think that's inside of every human. We had the desire for purpose. Is we want our lives to count for something, not just to feel like we're living, but that we're making a difference, right? Yeah. We have the desire for production, and or reproduction. And man, like that's something we even talked about last time. Like how wonderful is it to get to have kids? And I remember each one of my boys being born. And like, I don't know what it was like for you, but I just remember like, every time, like I just started crying. Yeah. Because I'm looking in the eyes of, and I see myself. Yeah. And the person I love the most in this world. Yes. Yeah. Like in bodily form. Like, and it's like, it's crazy, right?
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
And then just along with that feeling, the awe of God that somehow life came from just our love. Yeah. And it reproduced more life. And ultimately it's it's my image and Kiki's image put together, but really it's God's image,
Yeah.
right? And so the desire for that, the desire for pleasure, and even in it, like God didn't have to make food taste good.
Right.
God didn't have to make sex feel good.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that. But God put pleasure in this world for us to experience pleasure. And so the desire for pleasure, God surrounded them with abundance of pleasure that was pleasure for the eye, pleasure for the nose, pleasure for the mouth, pleasure for the heart. That God surrounded us with all of this stuff. And even the desire for power, which, again, I think probably manifests a little bit more or maybe differently for men. But I think there's so many men that are chasing after power because they have a desire to rule. And that's not a wrong desire because God did say, I will give you dominion, right?
Yeah.
I've made you for power. Like, not to, and this is the problem, is when we're like, my power is about independence and basically usurping or going over God and thinking too highly of myself. But God's like, no, I'm giving you power within my kingdom. And so all of those things, they were there in the garden in abundance.
Yeah.
Pleasure was in abundance. Intimacy or presence was in abundance, both with God and with people. Pleasure was in abundance. Production and reproduction. And that's, I think it's a little bit of the difference between a man and woman, even in creation, that most of what men got to experience in abundance was kind of an external expression of it, right? It was the production that happened with a seed in a field, right? And the picking and the planting. And God did all of the reproduction in it. Like, it wasn't like, it's just like, when you put a piece of corn in the ground, it's like, did you do anything? Yeah, you did something, but like
very little.
Did you make it become like a stalk with a bunch of ears on it? No, you didn't do that. God did that, right?
Yep.
And it was like God's desire to include us into his abundance, right? He was going to do the work, but somehow we were going to be still a part of it, right? And he was giving us, here's a chance for you to participate with me in the desires of your heart. And and even in that it would reproduce, that it would reproduce. And inside it, then that's why the seed for a woman is an internal seed, right? That, again, comes about through pleasure. That through participating in the pleasure of intimacy, then there is reproduction that happens. But her seed is an internal seed. And, I don't know, and I never will know what it's like to carry a baby. But I've watched my wife 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely there's part of it that's laborsome, right? But that's really part of the curse, okay? But what God set up for originally was all those things that I know you watched Ashton go through. That was, do you remember with your first child, like kind of reading where's the stage of our baby?
Oh, yeah.
Or even the first time
in the fruits,
Yeah, exactly. Now the size of a bean, right? Or a peanut or whatever, and it's like, that's your baby's the size of an orange. You read that stuff, and you're like imagining, and it's like, it's inside.
Yeah.
But it's going to come out, right?
Yeah.
And then even the first time that your wife felt the baby kick.
Yeah.
And the feeling of life inside of her. And then, eventually the kicking is enough that she's like, hey, put your hand right here, right? And you put your hand there, and you're like, oh, that's our baby in there, And, you and I will never know what that's like to have life grow inside of us, but God's given that honor and that privilege to women. And so I do think there's a domain of rulership that God has given that's different for a man and different for a woman, but both of them are the realms of abundance to experience everything we desire. Like, really, the felt needs of humanity, it's everybody has the same felt needs. And it really probably comes down to 6 to 8 things that we all are chasing after. Okay? The story of the garden, though, is that there's all of these felt needs that God put inside of us. And he says, and this is the way to cultivate them. This is the way to experience them, not just once, but to experience them in the way that they perpetuate my image on this earth, and therefore then build culture. Okay, which kind of is
Yeah.
where we would tie this probably back into what we were talking about last time. That is, if we're at a spot where we're looking and saying, man, our culture, we're probably not doing it. Like we're losing it as far as kingdom culture. And so if we want to do something about that to redeem or to turn the tide of our culture, man, where do we need to go and how do we do that? And so this principle of abundance is basically just saying, how do we not just understand the way that God wanted us to be, but how do we reverse the curse?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we imagine now Adam and Eve, okay, they're in the garden, and
Okay.
did they have intimacy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With God, with each other? Absolutely. Like unperverted intimacy inside of covenant, okay? Inside the protection of covenant, they have intimacy. And therefore, then they have community, and community that will grow, right? That even as they practice more and more intimacy, the community is going to grow out of it.
Yeah.
Do they have authority? Do they have power? Absolutely. Do they have pleasure? Yes, every kind. And so they're surrounded by bounty everywhere. Everywhere they look is bounty. And there's one question that comes from what we call the snake or the serpent, you know, and I don't know if this is worthy of debating over, but I think probably better said it was a dragon rather than a snake, just because even what Scripture says, like it was a snake that was on legs, it was a serpent that was on legs, okay, and even there's so much of the dragon slaying talk that is from Genesis all the way to Revelation, that I think it probably is better said it was a dragon that spoke.
Yeah.
And some people, you know, Michael Heiser is an incredible Hebrew theologian. Okay, and I mean, he's so good. Like even if people disagree with him, they're like, but he's probably right. You know, like because he's just like he's so astute, and he ties in the way even the word that's used for the serpent is more declaring a divinity that was there in the serpent rather than even a fact that it was a talking snake. And of course, if you're a Bible believer, you already are like, oh, well, there was a talking snake. Is it that much harder to believe that there would be some kind of a divinity that was trying to deceive? And so the deception from the dragon or the serpent came through one question. You know what it was?
You know, it's on the tip of my tongue, but you're gonna have to tell it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So in the middle of all this, the dragon, the serpent, isolates Eve, and he says to her, did God say you cannot?
You cannot. Yeah.
Did God say you cannot eat from any tree in the garden? One question. And Eve responds, no, God didn't say I can't eat from any tree in the garden, but he did say I cannot eat from the tree in the center of the garden. And if I even touch it, I will die. Now, her response takes her focus from the bounty and puts it on what she can't have.
Yeah.
Instead of looking around and seeing the beauty of creation and everything that she could experience, the leaves on the trees, the fruit, her spouse, the life that she had, her focus goes towards the one thing that she cannot have. And she says, he did say, I cannot eat from the tree that's in the center of the garden. But creation says there were two trees at the center of the garden. What are they?
The tree of life.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the way we know it, is we know it
Okay.
as the tree of life and eternal life.
Yeah,
Okay. Life
okay.
that produces more life. Okay.
Okay.
And then the tree of knowledge of good and evil
Yeah.
is the way that we know it as,
Okay.
which probably we lose a little bit in the translation to say it's the knowledge of good and evil, because God had already given them knowledge of what was good and what was evil, right? When God made stuff, what did he say?
So
Well,
it was
that's good.
Yeah.
And so like, it wasn't like they didn't know it was good.
Yeah.
And so it really probably to understand it better, even if we're going to relate it to good and evil, it was the tree of I get to decide what's good and evil. I'm not going to trust what God says is good and what God says is evil. I'm going to define it for myself. And so that was the tree that if you eat from that tree, that is, I'm going to decide what's good and I'm not going to trust what God says is good. And I'm going to decide what's evil. I'm going to make up my own rules for my life, for the world, for humanity. Then that tree will produce death.
Yeah.
Not just once, it will perpetuate death, right? It will curse humanity. One question, and where does their focus go?
To what she doesn't have.
Yep, to
Yeah.
the tree of death.
Yeah.
Tree of life and the tree of death. And it takes one question, and it doesn't only say that tree gets her focus, it says that tree centers her garden. I cannot eat from the tree that's at the center of my garden. That is the crux of what we still deal with in life.
Yeah.
I believe, Austin, that is, we have abundance that surrounds us. Abundance of intimacy that's available with God, communion and intimacy that's available with other people inside of covenant, whether that be inside of marriage or inside of a covenant of promise amongst believers. Like, we have all of this opportunity for abundance. But with one question, the enemy gets us to where we abandon the center of our garden, which is meant to be life. And God says, I put two trees at the center of the garden. I want you to live your life around this tree. Eat from it every day. Visit it. And it will give you life, but not just once off life. It will give you life abundant.
Yeah.
Okay, so even when Jesus is saying this in New Testament terminology, he says, you know, the enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
But I've come that you might have
Life abundant.
life
Yeah.
and life abundant.
Yeah.
Okay. I can say, like, in my experience with kind of modern Christianity, I've had what I would say is experiences with God that are experiences of abundance. I would also say I've had experiences with religion that actually produce deprivation. That there's so much stuff once I started getting into church that whether I related it to it wrongly just in myself, it was my own problem, which is a fair bit, you know, like, or whether it was taught to me wrong, which is probably a fair bit as well. That was Christianity is about what you can't do.
Yep.
And here's your list of things you can't do. And whether you go, your list is the 10 Commandments, this is what you can't do, or your list is like, well, you can't smoke, you can't drink, you can't chew, and you can't go with girls who do, you know, or whatever. I don't know. Like, whatever your list of things, it was either what I can't do or maybe what I'm obligated to.
Yeah.
Right? That is, well, you know, you better make sure that you're reading your Bible every day. And man, I think reading your Bible every day is great, unless you're at the spot of, I'm just doing this out of a slavery. And so even when Jesus is saying, he's like, man, I came to set you free. And it was what Paul says is it was for freedom's sake that he set us free. In other words, like, he didn't set us free so we could get enslaved again to another yoke of bondage.
Yeah.
Right? And so that question that came in the garden was a question that cultivated deprivation. And what I believe is every sin has a prerequisite of deprivation. In other words, I think nobody would ever sin unless they had a sense of deprivation. And that was true for Eve. It was true for Adam. It wasn't until they started focusing, got their focus off of abundance and focused on what they can't have, that then the very next thing that happened was sin or rebellion. And that is always the progression. It goes deprivation, sin or rebellion, blame, shame, death. That is the progression of sin in our lives or disobedience to God. And so even if we're going to look at in our own lives, how do we live a more life-giving, abundant life, and therefore then also not live a life of sin, blame, shame, and death? Well, I think instead of starting at the place of like, I just got to stop sinning, or I got to somehow get my kids to stop sinning, or look at society and like, how do we get everybody to stop sinning? What if we take one step back from there and see what happens before sin? And that's the principle of abundance. That can we cultivate or recultivate a garden in our own lives, in our marriage, in our family, in our marketplace, in the church? That is, can we cultivate a garden that's a garden of abundance? That's not convincing people that somehow Christianity is what we're not supposed to do, or what we can't have, or what we're obligated to do. Because even when Paul talks about it, he says, you have an obligation. You do. But it's just one. And it's not the sinful nature to live according to it. That's not what you're obligated to. Your only obligation is the obligation of sonship. You get to be my kids. And man, I have everything. I own all of this, all of the authority on earth, all the possession of this earth. Everything is mine. And so, do you have an obligation? Absolutely. Sonship. And man, I think, Austin, this is a principle that like I'm still trying to live and learn and apply. But man, I think it's a powerful one.
Man, that's incredible. You know, I mentioned this to you when we were talking about the podcast, but just even recently, God was speaking to me about abundance. And then I went back and I looked at some of our messages, and that was one of the things you wanted to talk about. And I just thought, wow. Look at God's being abundant in that. But one thing I want to share with this that I struggle with is, so I was spending some time with God, and I was journaling, and I felt very strongly like I need to write down some things that he was telling me. And one of those was, man, I have abundance for you, Austin. And I wrote it down, and I almost felt like, ooh, can I write that? Like, that feels like, I don't know, is that, really, God? Like, I almost had this like concern in me of like, maybe that's too much. Maybe I went too far, But maybe I'm the only one that feels that way, or maybe not. But it feels like sometimes there's this limiting belief we have even on accepting the abundance that God has for us. Have you ever experienced that, or do you know what's causing that? What might be sitting below the surface there that's saying, hey, why is there this resistance to even accept this abundance that God has given us?
I mean, I think it's a good question. I think maybe a couple of things that would just come to mind would be, for one, I think that we sit in a place of shame because of sin, and so we think, oh, we're not deserving of, and so we'll like almost disqualify ourselves. And I think this even happens when it comes to men leading in the home. It's like, man, I think, Austin, like I felt like as a young man getting married, I felt like I could walk onto a campus and lead hundreds of people spiritually. I felt like I could walk into a lot of different circumstances and have the confidence to lead spiritually. The place I felt the least confident was with Kiki. Like, it just felt this insecurity that, and part of it was, I don't think I had seen spiritual leadership modeled. But also there was a big part of it that I knew my own depravity. I knew like, and I knew that she knew too. Like,
right. That's the key.
And man, it's not that I think that Kiki's perfect, but man, her mistakes are so much prettier than mine. Like her flaws are like so much more beautiful than mine, and like mine are hideous. Like, and so I think sometimes it's just we just disqualify ourselves because of shame. And I suppose there's another part of it that there might be an expression of quote unquote abundance that's in kind of the name it, claim it, like prosperity gospel kind of like thing that like maybe we would feel averse to, but I think God talks about that, that's like even, and this is, I think it's Deuteronomy, maybe 19, but I'm just guessing right now. So that it basically says, like, if you're going to claim my rewards and yet not live the lifestyle that's set in front of you, then he says, I will single you out for destruction. And I will never forgive your sins. Like, it's like harsh.
Yeah.
Right? That is, if you're going to claim to be my people and then claim the rewards of being my people and yet not live like my people, then that's not blessing.
Yeah.
In fact, the curses will be way worse upon you. Okay. And so I do think maybe there's also a slight aversion to like, oh, I don't want to be one of those like prosperity gospel people. And then also think there's just part of it that is, we do live in a fallen world. And so we experience curse. And so we experience the fruits of deprivation, sin, or rebellion, blame, shame, and death. And so it's like, man, is abundance really possible? And maybe even, and I'm not trying to say my family's perfect at all, but even like what you're saying, which thanks be to God, okay, that if you're able to look at somebody else's life and be like, man, they are experiencing abundance in a different way. That's not about the size of their bank account or the size of their house or the newness of their car, but like there's life that's giving life out to other people. Then it like makes you believe again, right? And makes you feel like it might be possible for you.
And I think the alternative of that, and why this topic is so important, is Ashton was telling me a story just the other day. She was having a conversation with a friend who's not walking with Jesus, who's walked away, and she was asking like, okay, what's going on? Like trying to just understand. And the friend said, the problem is most people who call themselves Christians right now just make it look so unattractive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think this is why this matters so much, because Jesus didn't come to die so that we could live unattractive, horrible lives.
Yes.
He said what you just said. He came so that we may have life and have it more abundantly.
Yes.
In fact, he says the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes we as Christians are putting on that. We want to live with that death mindset instead of the abundant life mindset. And I think for the sake of the gospel and for others knowing Christ, this topic is so important, even outside of ourselves, so.
Yeah. No, I think I really think it's central to not just the understanding of God, but the life lived out in Christ. That we understand not only is it available to us, but we're meant to perpetuate abundance. We're supposed to set culture of abundance in our lives, in our homes, our businesses, everywhere. We are the purveyors of abundance, and I think even part of the journey for me, Austin, is like I guess I was frustrated in reading Genesis and even kind of trying to dive into this idea of abundance versus deprivation. Okay, I was frustrated because I was like, God, like that's so messed up. The fact that you created everything and you made it perfect and you called it perfect. You called it good.
Yeah.
And you made it for us to enjoy and to enjoy you. And then with one question, it all gets ruined. And I was just like, that's so messed up. Like, how is it that the enemy, the serpent, the dragon, or if you want to blame Adam and Eve, how is it the Eve, or how does it the Adam mess it all up for us? And like, and it just feels so unfair in a sense. And I felt like God basically was like saying to me, with one question, all of this stuff was initiated, but with a better question, all of it can be reset. And so even the proclamation out of Genesis, with the curse came the promise of redemption. So even as God is cursing humanity to experience death and perpetual death, that is, you chose this, focused on deprivation, you didn't obey what I said that will create abundance around you and perpetuate abundance for generations. Instead, you chose another way. But I'm going to make a way for this all to be made right. And I'm going to plant a new tree. And really, that's the picture of even the cross being put in the ground. It was a new tree. It was a new tree of life that would have roots, that would grow, and that would produce abundance again, that we could participate no longer in the curse, but back in the place of abundance and of blessing. And so that question, I think, for one, I think we need to recognize it's not just a problem that Eve had or that Adam had. It's a problem that we have. Okay, and so I think it's worthwhile talking about, like, where does our focus go, and what is the center of our gardens? In other words, what do we focus on? What do we think about the most? And I think there's three probably main questions of deprivation that it's not just like the dragon spoken once back to Eve, but it's constantly being spoken to us. And those three questions of deprivation that I think most Americans spend the majority of their time focusing on, they give the most attention to these three things. The first one is we think about what we do not have.
Okay.
And whenever you think about, ask the question, talk about what you don't have, you are putting the tree of death at the center of your garden.
Yeah.
And there's so much, Austin, that puts our minds and our attention on that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a consumeristic society, right? And so it was bad enough when it was just like television ads, right? It's like, at least you would watch a show and then you just have a couple ads, right? But you get onto the internet, you get onto social media, and you've got an algorithm that is actually taking supercomputers and pointing them at your brain, and basically saying, we are going to be intentional about cultivating deprivation inside of you by constantly getting you to focus on what you do not yet have. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah.
And then what gets produced? Well, the immediate thing that comes after deprivation is rebellion.
Yeah.
And so the more, and this happens whether it's like the next phone that I don't have, right? I mean, what was Apple's most recent, like, they made up a new word. I can't even think what it is right now, but it was like that, basically the desire for the next new thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it was
I can't
the way,
remember what
I
the
think
word
it was
is.
the way they marketed the iPhone 16.
Yeah.
It was like, gosh, I wish I could think of it right now. But they're basically saying, like, we're going to put the joy, and we're going to say joy is equated with having the next new thing.
Yeah.
And it really was just a declaration of, like, where all of advertising is trying to get us to focus, which is on what we do not have.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening in the world around us. And the more that we engage with media, with social media, with advertising, with even just, I mean, like Instagram and Facebook, like, there's so much of what they make us feel is like we just look at somebody else's not real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just think, oh man, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. And then it just creates inside of us deprivation that followed by rebellion. And then we're in the spot of shame, blame, and then death.
Yeah.
And I think we end up perpetuating that even with our kids.
Yeah.
I really do.
100%. I mean, I think Ash and I were literally talking about this the other night, but I think the worst thing that we let start happening around Christmas time was this cute little Amazon catalog that would come by mail.
Okay,
Like, this makes us think of our childhood. Let's give it to our kids and have them circle all these things that they don't know they need. And then what is that?
Bro, I remember doing that when I was a kid.
I know, me too.
I mean, like circling,
And
like,
so it's
exactly.
like, oh, we want our kids to do
And
this.
tabbing pages,
and then what happens? And on Christmas, they all of a sudden realize they needed 30 things that they've never seen before.
Yeah, and then so often, even when they get the thing, it's not satisfying, and they're
Right.
thinking about the next thing or
Yeah.
what they didn't get, right?
Yeah.
And it perpetuates the sense of deprivation.
But I mean, that's felt like just an innocent, like nostalgic thing, right?
Yeah.
That just, and here it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even just to kind of make sure that we're tagging a couple practices as we go along, and I think it'd be good.
Yeah.
We'll circle back in the end and hit some more practices hopefully. But even with Christmas, okay.
Yeah.
So if we're saying we're going to be men who try,
Mhm.
okay, what are we going to try to do different?
Yeah.
That instead of early November giving them the Amazon
Yeah.
catalog or giving them the phone and say, hey, start looking what you want, or even just asking the question. So have you made up your list?
Yeah.
Like your list of things that you do not yet have. What if instead, leading into a holiday that's meant to be about sacrifice and about generosity?
Yeah.
That was Christmas.
Yeah.
It was that God gave his only son,
Yeah.
and that he sacrificed of himself, both in his divinity, but also in the intimacy of himself. He sacrificed of himself for the sake of us. What if instead we start asking our kids in November, hey, have you started thinking about what you want to buy for other people?
Yeah.
And we started doing this with our boys, and we just started, instead of talking about, hey, what do you want? It was, hey, what are you thinking you want to get for Court? And Court, what are you thinking you want to get for Ransom this year? And it's changed our holidays. It's changed our holy days, and they've actually become way more holy again.
Wow.
And instead of holy days being stolen away from us by taking something that's meant to be about generosity and about sacrifice and making it about consumerism and selfishness, we're getting back to the place of actually practicing generosity. And our boys, frankly, are more excited for brother gift time
Wow.
than they are for gifts from us.
Wow.
They do.
That's
They're like, when are
incredible.
we going to do brother gifts? Because that's what they're most excited about.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because God made us actually to be givers, not to be receivers. And godly generosity, I do believe there's two different kinds of generosity.
Okay.
The generosity of this world, okay, or a depraved generosity is generosity that says, hey, you need to be a giver so that I can be a receiver. And so then I'm constantly looking for the next giver so I
Yeah.
can be a receiver.
Yeah.
And it builds entitlement.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you owe me, or the world owes me,
Yeah.
or whatever, And so you be generous so that I can receive. Godly generosity doesn't produce more receivers. Godly generosity produces more givers. And God is always ahead of us.
Yeah.
Okay? No, God will never be in debt to any man
Yeah.
because he gave first.
Yeah.
And even if we say, oh, God, but I gave you, I gave you tithe this month, or it's like, well, where'd you get that from?
It's from me.
Out of my
Yeah.
abundance,
Yeah.
right? No, I earned it. Oh, with what strength? With what gifts and talents? With what time? With what breath in your lungs? Oh, you gave me that too.
Yeah.
And it's like it resets our thinking and back to a place of abundance. That is,
Wow.
out of God's abundance, he gave first, and then we are meant to be the second givers. I love C.S. Lewis. I think this may be mere Christianity, but I love it. He says, basically he's talking about a father whose son comes to him and says, hey, Father, can I have 6 pence to go buy a gift for you? And the father gives him 6 pence, and the child goes and buys his father a gift, and then he gives it to him. And is the father pleased with the gift? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But is he 6 pence to the richer on the transaction?
Yeah.
No.
No.
He's not 6 pence to the richer.
Yeah.
And so it's basically just saying whatever we have even to give to God, it came from him first.
Yeah.
And so God will never be in debt to any man. He is the initiator of generosity. That is what started in the garden.
Yeah.
God gave.
Yeah.
And he took from himself. And whether it was at a loss to himself or not, we probably don't fully understand that. Was there sacrifice in the garden there certainly was sacrifice out of the garden, right, to reverse the curse.
Yeah.
And so God gave, and he gave, and he gave first in the garden. He gave first through his son on the cross. And our lives are meant to be the perpetuation of life that comes through generosity that flows out from us then.
Yeah.
So, man, that's probably down a little bit of a tangent road, but it is a fun one. So the second question, okay?
The first one was deprivation.
Yeah, that is to focus on what I do not have.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second one's probably a little bit deeper than that. Okay. The second question of deprivation is around what I cannot do.
Okay.
And whether we talk about that in the sense of comparison, which again, social media is really powerful in that it builds a debilitating comparison that gets us to focus on what we can't do, and then the other part of it is I think there's a religion that's called Christianity at times that is also focused on what we can't do, and again that's where whether it was my fault I interacted with that, which is in part, or whether that's how I was led at times in part. Either way, there was a part of my Christianity, so to speak, that had me thinking so much about what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like, it just did. And
all about the rules.
Yeah, it's all about the rules. And whether it was kind of biblical rules that were the 10 Commandments, or whether it was like made up rules that were, you don't run in church, and you shouldn't really laugh in church. You can't have fun in church.
Yeah.
And really, man, the world's fun, but man, there's punishment for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Christianity, you'll be saved from the hell and the destruction and the fire that's after the fact. But man, life sucks.
Yeah.
But if you could just endure through that, just hang on, man.
Yeah.
Like you'll just as long as you'll be glad later. You'll be glad for eternity.
Yeah.
But you're not glad now. We know that. And that's, again, I think that's the perpetuation that the enemy wants.
Yeah.
Is he wants to perpetuate a sense of deprivation of what you cannot do. And I don't know, you can tell me whether you think this is worth talking about like in this setting, but even like the reframing of the 10 Commandments I think is useful. That when we relate to the 10 Commandments as the list of what you cannot do, I think it really gets hard to get past that, even as we relate to the New Testament. That is, Jesus saying, like, I didn't come to do away with any of the law.
Right.
Not even a dot or a tittle, not even the smallest part of the law. I'm not here to do away with that. I came to fulfill that. So you can't really say, oh, man, the 10 Commandments don't apply. Right? So how do we reframe the 10 Commandments in a way that we really understand God's abundance? How do we reframe the Levitical law in a way that we understand God's abundance? And then probably the way that we perpetuate that is then when we put up laws, are we in our home for our own lives? How do we interact with those laws, and how do we get our kids to interact with them?
Okay.
I don't know. Do you think that's
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to. I want to know more.
all right? So if we relate to the law of God, 10 Commandments or Levitical law as arbitrary, in other words, it's just like God was just making up some stuff to just test us, to see if we would go along with it, or to limit us. Okay, that would be like the wrong view of the law.
Okay.
And if you view that, then you're always just trying to pass the test. Okay, that is, oh man, there's a bunch of things that I want to do, but I'm on this earth and I'm put to the test, and so will I pass the test? And the truth of it is, like, none of us pass the test,
No.
and so it can still lead you to a place of dependence on God, but it doesn't lead you into abundance.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're always just like trying to pass God's arbitrary test and constantly failing.
Yeah.
And so if you know God, you run to Him and ask for forgiveness and try to receive that forgiveness and restart again. If you don't know God, then you just are in a perpetual state of like failure.
Yeah.
Or perceived success.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other way to see it is that God is actually describing himself, okay? Which what we know throughout Scripture is God is a self-revealing God.
Yeah.
In everything from the garden through the cross,
Yeah.
what God is trying to do is he's trying to say, this is who I am. This is my nature. And so even to take the things we're talking about within creation and say, what was God doing? God was taking who he is in his infinite nature, and he was making it finite and accessible to us so that we can know him.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to describe himself to us as humanity. He is a self-revealing God.
Yeah.
That is one thing we know for sure.
Yeah.
Okay? And so if that's true, then the law and the first law, and there really was only one law to start off with, that was the law, basically the law of love and life, right? That is, I want you to experience my love, and my love produces abundance that happens inside of covenant, and that abundance inside of covenant reproduces life. It's the law of love and life, right? So that, and the only boundary was, don't eat from this other tree.
Yeah.
Don't not trust me. Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, trust me.
Yeah.
That's my double negative.
Yeah.
Don't not trust
Don't
me.
not trust me.
And therefore then center your guard and eat from this other tree where you think better, you know what is good and evil. Okay. And so one law that was then broken. And so then there's more law. Is that about more limitation, or is it about more description? I think it's about more description.
Yeah.
God's trying to say, I want you to be like me. I made you in my image. My desire has always been for you to be like me. And in that, to experience abundance of intimacy, abundance of production, power, reproduction, pleasure. Like, this is what I've always wanted for you. I'm now just going to give you some more instruction on how to be like me.
Wow.
And so if you want to be like me, this is how you can do that. In me, there is no deception. So if you want to be like me, you will have no deception in your life, because I'm true. I'm the definition of truth. In me, there is life. I want you to experience life, not just to have it, but to pass it on. And so if you want to be like me, don't take life, give life.
Yeah.
And so every one of the commandments, if you hear it as God saying, you shall not do this because you're like me, then it's not a limitation. It's an ushering us
Yes, an
into
invitation.
abundance
Yeah.
and imitation, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can,
Yeah.
God, if I want to be like you again,
Yeah.
and if I want to trust you that being like you is good,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then what would it take to imitate you? And then that follows all the way through into, what did we need more than the written law? And this is where the New Testament basically, Paul is saying so much about the law was perfect, so it wasn't imperfect. What do we need, though? Well, we needed the law or the word become flesh. That's the way that John describes it. And so we needed the new image to imitate. And so Christ came to be the fulfillment of the law so he could live out in a way that we could get a picture again, a moving picture, an alive picture, an incarnation of what does it look like to live an abundant life in the middle of a cursed world.
Yeah.
And so now we have a new thing to imitate. So that thing that puts us in the spot that, like, God's rules are trying to keep us away from something or trying to convince us of what we can't do. It's a lie from the enemy.
Yeah.
Now the only one of the 10 Commandments that's a little bit different, at least this is the way that I would believe or I would understand this, and probably there's theologians that would debate this, but the last one is a little bit different. Okay, every other one of the 10 Commandments is externally observable. The last one is, you shall not covet.
Yeah.
You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's house, your neighbor's possessions, your neighbor's anything.
Yeah.
And what I believe and what some theologians would say is it's different because it's actually the declaration of the reward. Okay? That
Wow.
If you will live like me, if you will be like me, then you will not want anybody else's wife. You won't want anybody else's kids. You won't want anybody else's house. You won't want anybody else's bank account. You'll just want your life because you're
Wow.
living an abundant
Yeah.
life. And I think that's what it's saying.
Yeah.
And that is such a contrast, Austin, to the way that most of our Western world lives.
Yeah.
We focus so much on what we don't have and on what we can't do. And even as Christians, I think we get caught in the lie that is actually that's God's plan for us.
Yeah.
To focus on what we can't do.
Yeah.
And it's not.
No.
It's over and over again, Old Testament, New Testament, freedom. He wanted freedom. What do you want for the Israelites? Freedom.
Freedom.
What did Jesus say he wants for? Freedom.
Yeah.
What do you come for? Freedom. What does Paul say? It's about freedom.
Yeah.
Like, you want freedom, like, it's not about limitation. Okay, so practice.
Yeah.
What does it look like to have rules or laws in your house and to perpetuate abundance versus perpetuating deprivation?
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know.
How do you try to put things of like, okay, I've got these expectations of my kids, or we need to do this in this way at bedtime, or we need to do this in this way, like when we're around people or whatever. You know, there's things that you're putting as laws in your household. How do you think you can perpetuate a sense of abundance versus a sense of deprivation?
I think, man, that's a really good question. I mean, one of the things that comes to my mind, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but like we talk about with the boys, like when you tell a lie to your brother, right? Like, you shouldn't do that. Well, no, why should you not do that? You shouldn't do that because that breaks your relationship with your brother. You lose trust. And so that's limiting, your relationship together. So when we tell each other the truth, that actually cultivates a tighter relationship and more unity. I don't know. Is that
No, I
like
think
what
that's great. I mean, like, and in that, to me, what I hear in that is you're trying to move a law from being arbitrary
Yeah.
To being experiential and experientially positive, right?
Yeah.
That is, man, like, don't you see, like, when you and your brother are at a good spot, like, you guys are such good friends, and there's trust between you, and even you can start speaking prophetically over your kids. That is something that we've tried to do. That is, man, like, you guys will be best friends for your whole life.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's what we've always wanted them to be,
Yeah.
right? Like, we want our boys to when they graduate, when they have their jobs, when they have their kids and their families, that they're still each other's best friends.
Yeah.
And so you start framing it in the context of abundance.
Yeah.
That is not just abundance right now, that is, and this is, don't you see how this breaks this down?
Yeah.
But you can have this, but also it produces this. And then you frame it in a way that's like outside your home too. That is, man, what kind of a friend do you want to have? Do you want to have somebody that does this to you? Okay, well then you got to be the friend that you want a friend to be, and you start to cultivate that, right?
Yeah.
And to get them thinking about, like, what is the life that I want to be living? How do I start taking steps towards that life?
Yeah.
Of who I want to be, but also who do I want to be around? What kind of community that I want to build?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think absolutely. I
That's
think
great.
it's really good.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the conversation. We try to slant it as much towards privilege,
Okay.
rather than saying things of like, well, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
This is what we get to do.
Yeah.
And even highlighting the things that God lets us experience and giving Him credit for them.
Yeah.
Okay? And rather than saying we earned this or this has come from us as your parents, but instead, like, no, like, man, do you see this? Do you see how privileged our family is that we got to spend this time together? And it doesn't have to be like something of extravagance that's like, oh, we got to go to wherever and, and have the nicest of food and stay in the nicest of places. But like, don't you see how amazing it is that we get to be together and we get to have this time together?
Yeah.
And talking about it in the sense of privilege. And then also, again, I think we try to do as much prophesying over our kids. And I know some people might be uncomfortable with that language, but prophecy is definitely something that is declaring a forward-looking returning to God. Okay, that's the simplest way. Even if you look at Old Testament prophecies, so many of them, what do they start off with? They start off with "Return to me."
Yeah.
Come back to a place of intimacy and presence with me, and then center your lives around the right thing. And if you do that, then I will produce abundance. And yeah, I might take you to this land and accomplish this thing, but really my prophetic utterance is more about proximity than it is direction. And so cultivating that atmosphere of abundance through intimacy, through highlighting reward in our lives, through trying to not like take credit for things, but to give God glory for them. Also, there's a big part of it, and maybe this. Let's swing back on good questions, okay?
Okay.
Because like, in as much as I think there's 3 really bad questions or questions that create deprivation, I think there's 3 questions that cultivate abundance, okay? So let's hit the last one. Last question of deprivation. So the first one was what I do not have. Second one was what I cannot do. And the third one is who I am not. And that is the deepest, like that's the one that like affects us the most. And it's not to say that the other ones don't affect us dramatically, but like when we start asking the question of who I am not, and focusing on who I am not, it is a core identity issue. And God, before He put possessions or things that surround us more superficially of what we have, or even before we were given ability of this is what we do, His first declaration of us is about who we are. And so the most powerful bondages in our lives, as far as that, not only make us experience one sin, but make us perpetuate sin, okay? Keep on returning to it over and over again, are ones that attach in identity, okay? That is who I am not. And again, I think the enemy is constantly like trying to beat us down as humans, as men, as women, like of who we are not. Like, man, I think there's so many of us that we look in the mirror and we just see everything that we're not. And it just puts us in a spot where we almost give up on becoming anybody else. And even, I mean, the way that I think this even happens in Christian dialogues with men is, you know, we get this thing that's like, oh, this is every man's battle, right? And so even if you get to the place of vulnerability or confession that is, man, I'm really struggling with pornography or with lust or with you know, chasing after women, it stops at the point of basically misery loves company, you know? And so it's like, oh man, like it's nice to know that I'm not alone in this, and that, man, we all struggle, and that's just because we're men. And we're always going to struggle. And because we will never be any better than that, because that's what men are. And God's like, no, that's not my definition of what a man is. And if you accept that, then you've believed the lie that will never allow you to a place of repentance, not true repentance. You can go to forgiveness, and then over and over again be like, God, please forgive me again. God, please forgive me again. And frankly, like I've lived in that place where over and over again, like I was going back to the same rebellion over and over again, and genuinely not wanting to do it. I mean, on one side, very genuinely wanting to do it, else I wouldn't do it, you know. And that's where I think it's Augustine that talks about our levels of, there's multiple levels of passion or love. And so there's one level of which everybody loves what is good, but also everybody loves what is evil. And if you didn't love what is evil, you would never do evil, is basically what he's saying. So that has to be true of everybody, or else they would never do evil. There's another level of loves or passions that he basically says that is I love what is good, and I hate it that I love what is evil. And that is actually the level that our passion or our love for God is meant to develop in. That can we more and more love that we love what is good, and can our hate that we love what is evil grow and grow and grow. I've lost my train of thought now. Austin, help me out. Where was I going
we were
with
talking
that?
about identity and how this is so
Yes,
often
so it
rooted in
attaches so much
identity.
deeper.
Yeah.
It really attaches so much
Yeah.
deeper. And like the problem of identity is massive in our society.
Yeah, it is.
And we can look at really extreme examples, okay? That is, we live in Arkansas, which is a relatively conservative state.
Right.
And yet, like, in smaller towns in Arkansas over this last couple of years, there's high schools that have litter boxes in the bathrooms. And not because they have a bunch of cats there, but because we have a generation of young people that are so struggling with their identity that they're finding the greatest amount of community by associating with non-human. And in that, they're finding kind of the greatest level of acceptance, love, or intimacy by being non-human somehow, because like they become convinced of who they are not.
Yeah.
And that's an extreme example that we can all, like, I can sit there and be like, oh, that's so messed up.
Yeah.
But it's also true if I ask men that are my age this question, okay? And I say, who are you? But you can't use location, vocation, or relation to describe your identity, okay?
Yeah.
There's so many men that are my age that are like, they just have a blank slate. They're like, well, because what do we want to say? I want to say, well, I'm married to Kiki, and I have 5 boys, and we live in Conway, Arkansas. I grew up in Nebraska, lived in Montana, and I studied this in college. I did this afterwards. I'm doing this now.
Yep.
But all that stuff, it's location, vocation, and relation. And when we ask the question of ourselves, do we know who we are?
Yeah. Those aren't identity.
We don't.
Yeah.
And we end up linking our identity to something that is constantly changing and will forever change.
Yeah.
And so then not only do we not know who we are, but it constantly destabilizes us and puts us back in a place of rebellion, and then sin, blame, and shame, and death. So those are the 3 questions that still get asked of us, okay? And I think that for me, Austin, I think if we can recognize them and be like, man, like I know not only do I think about this, but these are the things that make me think about it.
Yes.
Okay? And then change some of the inputs into our lives.
That's the key, is the inputs.
Yeah, can we get away from the voice of the dragon?
Yeah.
That's and whether that's coming to us through our phone, which I mean, what's so crazy about these things, it's like if you look at the back of them, it's like, what's on the back of it?
It's an apple.
With a bite out of it.
Yeah.
Like, what does that remind you of? It's almost like it's straight from the garden.
Yeah.
And yet, like, we pick up these things every morning.
Yeah, without thinking about it.
And do we listen to the voice of God first, or do we listen to the voice of the dragon first?
Yeah.
That's trying to show us through these things what we don't have, what we can't do, who we are not. Yeah. And it's not the only way, but man, like, that's a pretty visual reminder.
Yeah.
And so even in that, like, if we're going to talk about spiritual leadership in our homes or in our marriages, and we're not willing to deal with these differently than the world does, and obviously I still have one.
Yeah.
But man, like, if I'm like trying to live a life and cultivate abundance in my life, and yet I still interact in the same way with that as the rest of my culture does, I won't be different.
Yeah.
I won't be.
No.
And neither will my kids.
No.
Like, and that's where I think we have to have the courage through community and through testimony.
Yeah.
That is like, hey, are we in it together? And this is something that even you and I have pledged to one another and our families of like, man, we're going to try and be in this together. We don't know fully what that's all going to look like, but man, we're going to try and figure some of these out together and in community.
Yeah.
And we're trying to expand that, like, man, can that be something that gives other men, families, women courage to also live differently
Yeah.
and to make different decisions about
Yeah.
it, to where we're not getting those bad questions asked of us all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Yeah. So I think the other part of it is not just removing the bad questions. It would be maybe asking better ones.
Yeah.
And I think even, I was saying earlier, of like just honestly kind of being a little bit like, I don't know if this is right to say, a little frustrated with God or frustrated with the story. It's
Yeah.
like, God, how is it that you made everything so perfect? You did put some kind of like thing in place to where it couldn't be wrecked so easily,
Right.
And I did just feel like God spoke to me like, not only did I make a way of redemption through the cross, and I promised that at the curse, okay, that was, I'm going to curse you now to experience the death that I promised you would.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to give you a way towards life. And the path to that is a better question. And in as much as one bad question that centers on deprivation can produce rebellion, shame, blame, and death, one good question can produce life and abundant life and it perpetuating life. And so I do think there's so much that, even if we're just talking about spiritual leadership in our own lives or in our marriages or with our families, it's as simple as just asking better questions. And I don't know, there's something about that for me,
Yeah.
Austin, that like, I think about spiritual leadership, and especially, like I said, the insecurity I felt as a husband
Yep.
and as a father to be a spiritual leader, and it just felt so like big and like, how can I ever do that? And
Yeah.
like, what am I ever going to do? And I'm not good at this, and like all that stuff. I mean,
Yep.
like, have you experienced that? Like
Oh,
just
yeah.
the insecurities that
Yes.
come with all that,
All the
and then
time, yeah.
and then the complexities.
Yeah.
That's just like when I felt like God showed this to me, it was like, well, that's just too simple. Like, that's just too easy. Like, is that like all I have to do? And God was like, yeah, like if you just do this, even if this is the only thing that you do, you will start leading spiritually
Wow.
in your own life, in your home, in your marriage, is just start asking a better question. And so with that, I do feel like God kind of showed me 3
Okay.
better questions to ask. Okay. And this is where hopefully we can like just get this really practical.
Yeah.
Okay. Not just like principled, but practical. Okay. So the first question is to ask questions of gratitude. And that is in direct contrast to the what I do not have.
Okay.
And so practically, if I'm struggling in my own mind or with my own focus, and I'm in a bad spot mentally, I just need to start practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
Ask myself in the morning,
Yeah.
before I do anything else, before I death scroll on this thing, how about I life scroll?
Yeah.
And I just practice gratitude.
Yeah.
Man, God, thank you for the breath that's in my lungs.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for the trees, God. Thank you for the beauty of your creation.
Yeah.
Thank you for my wife. Thank you for my kids. And thank you for who they are. And then just to start to describe to God, like, man, like Quaid, he is so determined. Man, he is so like disciplined. And God, I know that you want to use that for so many incredible things. Like, and just to describe like everything that we're grateful for.
Yeah.
And again, I think the deeper that we can get that, and what I mean by deeper is, I think we can say superficially, God, thank you for this bed that I'm laying in. Thank you
Yeah.
for money that I have. And that's like, certainly we should be saying thank you to God
Yeah.
for that. But the deeper that we can get that, that
Yeah.
is beyond the superficial things to the more relational and then more spiritual things,
Yeah.
like that are, God, thank you that you've made me to work like this,
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity that I have to do this today. I think that's spiritual leadership, that's self-leadership, asking yourself gratitude questions.
Yeah.
Even when we get frustrated in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, God, what am I grateful for right now?
Wonderful. Yeah.
If I'm frustrated at work,
Yeah.
God, what am I grateful for? Man, like I'm telling you, there's been some times like that, and again, I've been leading a university ministry that is basically I'm leading volunteers, and a lot of full-time volunteers for a lot of years.
Yeah.
That can be, if you engage with it wrong, very frustrating.
Yeah.
And there can be, if you look at it the wrong way, you can be surrounded by deprivation,
Yeah.
and then that be producing frustration. I know when you're in the restaurant business,
Yeah.
and more, like it's hard to find good help, and
Yeah.
like you've got a vision, and you've got a hope, but like it's so easy to focus on like what I don't have, and if I
Right.
just had this, which is more money, or if I just had this opportunity, or if I just had these people,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on all that stuff, and it just produces inside you frustration. So like, focus again. What am I grateful for?
Yeah.
And I think even if we're talking about in marriage, as men, when we think about leadership, what do you think is the first thing that we think of doing? I need to give leadership to this thing. What is the first thing we think about doing?
Well, I mean, on the surface, and where I used to go to when we were first married was I got to have the answers, or I've got to direct, or I've got to,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, if there's guys that haven't felt that way,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying that's necessarily like I did that, but
Right.
if I thought about what does it mean to lead,
Yep.
it was I've got to have the answers and I've got to give the directives.
Yep.
Right. Now, would Kiki follow them? It certainly felt like she wouldn't,
Yeah.
because it's like, who are you to try and tell me what to do? Why are you trying to tell me what to do? Or even
Right.
if I'm trying to have all the answers, it's like, well, I just need you to listen, right?
Yep.
Like, quit trying to solve it, just listen. Like, that's the whole, quintessential, like,
Yeah.
conversation between a husband and
Yes.
wife, But what if spiritual leadership was more about asking the better questions
Yeah.
than having the answers and giving the directives?
Yeah.
And frankly, if we look at how Jesus led while he was on this earth, he really didn't give that many directives.
Yeah.
Some, but he asked way more questions.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I certainly did.
He lived it out, he incarnated it, and then he asked great questions. And so if that was good enough for Jesus to lead by just asking great questions, probably it would be okay if we just led a lot more like that. And again, that's where I think it almost feels a little bit too easy.
Yeah.
But man, it's like it's powerfully different.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so, if in the morning, in the middle of the day, when I come home from work and Kiki's frustrated with,
Mhm.
man, this is how it went in schooling today, or frustrated with one of the boys in this. Okay, well, what are you grateful for?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just let her talk.
Yeah.
Is that spiritual leading?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
Why? Because it's brought her focus back to the tree that's meant to be at the center of her garden.
Yep.
And the tree of life has roots.
Hmm.
And those roots extend into the goodness of God through grace. And so whenever we access the goodness of God, is recognized that everything he's given us is a gift that we didn't deserve.
Mm.
And so when you have the goodness of God, that is the soil of life, okay, that you can extract the goodness out through the grace of God. That's the roots. Then what starts to grow in your life is gratitude.
Yeah.
That's what starts to spring forth. And so what I believe the tree of life looks like in our lives is it looks like access to the goodness of God through the grace of God, through unmerited favor. Like we get this stuff even though we didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
God just gave it to us.
Yeah.
And he made it available to us in him. And so the first thing that starts being produced in our lives is gratitude.
Yeah.
And so if we don't practice gratitude or help people around us to practice gratitude, we won't have abundance in our lives. That starts with us.
So, yeah.
But even with our kids,
yeah.
getting them to focus on what they're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. Like, okay, well, what are you
Yeah.
grateful for right now in life?
Yeah.
And trying to perpetuate that gratitude. Ask them the better question. What are you grateful for?
Yeah.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. I think that's huge.
Yeah. So if the first question is the question of gratitude, the second question is a question of learning. That I think if we will just ask the question of ourselves, of people that are around us, what are you learning through this? Or what is God trying to teach you through this?
Yeah.
Or what do you think God's trying to produce inside of you through this? It takes our perspective off of what I can't do. And it's like, it's really saying, will you focus instead on what God is preparing you for? Like, how is God trying to change you? What are you learning through this? Because otherwise, like, even if we talk about with our kids, they're like, oh, so I can't do this, or like, oh, but I wanted to do this. Why can't I do this? Well, what do you think you need to learn through this? Or what do you think God's trying to teach you through this? Or even, what do you think I'm trying to teach you through this? That, like, God's not trying to give you a terrible life, nor am I.
Yeah.
I'm trying to prepare you for something.
Yeah.
Or God's trying to prepare you for something. And frankly, like, sometimes I act way more immature in this than my kids do. You know, I'm just like, oh, why did this happen to me? You know, this isn't what I expected. And if I'll just slow down and I'll just ask a better question, it is, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me through this? And frankly, like, Austin, for me, this last 6 months have been an incredible time of abundance that was initiated by actually me getting fired. That was like not at all what I expected to happen. It wasn't in the forecast. It was like completely out of the blue, and I felt like very unjust. And I could have gotten stuck there in a place of deprivation.
Yeah.
And I know people that go through difficult things like that in life, tragedy, trauma, injustice, whatever.
Yeah.
And they just get stuck in a place of rebellion, sin, blame, and shame. And then they spend their whole rest of their life there with that as at the center of their garden. And what Kiki and I said together in the very beginning was, we can't control what we go through, but we can control how we go through it.
Yeah, that's good.
And God, what are you trying to teach us through this? Can I be able to look back and say, man, there's things I could have done different, or I should have done different. And God, I'm sorry. And can I try to make that right before you, God, and also before the people that are around me? And I'll try and do my best to do that. And are there other things, God, that you're just saying you want me to learn more of dependence on you, or to have us come together more, even as a couple? Like, what I would say is the last 6 months of my life have been, I think, some of the greatest 6 months that I've ever had, and even as a family, been some of the greatest 6 months we've had, that was initiated by something that could have very much put our focus on what we cannot do, what we do not have, or maybe even who we are not.
Yeah.
But instead of indulging in that, we just said, God, what are you trying to teach us through this? And man, like, it's made abundance grow out of a place that could have been like barrenness.
Yeah.
And sorrow and grief and all those things.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And and I think that's the privilege we have with our spouses, with our kids, that there's so many times that me saying to Kiki, as she's like talking through things, just saying, okay, so what is God teaching you through that? And I don't have to tell her, because sometimes I wouldn't even know.
Right.
I just need to let her get her focus back onto the tree of life, and then God will give her the answer.
Yeah.
Okay? That is, I'm actually trying to shape you. I'm trying to make you into somebody better, somebody different, somebody more like me. I'm going to refine you into my image. And so that question, or questions like that, questions of learning, will always lead us into a place of abundance and to a place of spiritual leadership.
Wow.
Yeah. So that'd be the second question.
Okay. There's one more.
Yeah, one more question. And maybe there's more out there, but like, I think the third question of abundance is the question of hope. And to ask, what are you hopeful for? And especially if we can get that hope deeper than just a superficial, I hope for a new house or a new car or to get this promotion or whatever. And not to say that like all those hopes are categorically bad, but they're so dependent on circumstance.
Yeah.
Can I focus my hope in both who I want to be or who I want to be impacted eternally. Like it, when my hopes align with the hopes of God, then I experience abundance.
Ooh,
right?
that's
Then
good.
that's where God gives us the desires of our hearts, because God, our desires then line up with His heart, right? And so, and honestly, this can be used again. It can be used at the beginning of the day. That is, man, what if spiritual leadership looked like in our life? Every morning, we just write down a hope for the day. What if our mornings began with, on the way to school with our kids, we just said, hey, what are you hopeful for today?
Yeah.
Or if we just said to our wife, like, before we leave in the morning, like, let's just sit down and have a cup of coffee and let's talk about what we're hopeful for. Or what if we just did that, like, on a date night, you know, and just said, hey, so what are you hopeful for right now? Man, like, there's so much that if we would just focus on hope, that God would produce the life that we want. But it can even, I mean, all these questions, they can be used both proactively or responsibly. Okay. So let's say I've got a child who's misbehaving, right? That's breaking a rule. Okay. And I'm like, okay, so what are you hopeful for in that? What do you hope that's going to produce in your life, in the people around you? Like, what is it that your hopes are?
That's good. Yeah.
And make them articulated.
Yeah.
And actually, well, I wasn't hopeful for anything. Okay, well then let's talk about hope. And again, then you're removing it from a place of, I'm now going to put limitation in your life to instead, let's talk about what it takes to become who you want to be, or to actually have hope in something.
Yeah.
So you're not just living your life like reactively, or instead, like, can we do something responsively? Or even, I'll use this for example, like when my second son turned 18, like we had made choices for our boys that on how they were going to engage with media and with phones and stuff like that. And again, I think that's super important. But he's now 18, right? And so he's saying to me, hey, Dad, what do you think about me getting social media on my phone? And so I started off with, okay, so do you know why we haven't done this up to this point? Yeah, it was for this, this, and this. Okay, so what do you think that's produced in your life that's different? And again, I'm practicing gratitude, right? That is, okay, so do you see that you've gotten to have these experiences, and you have this broad friend group, and you're really connected with these people, not just virtually. Like, do you see all that? Yeah, I know I do see that, Dad. Okay, so practicing gratitude. And I just ask him, okay, so you're saying I want to get social media. Now, I definitely have a belief that with kids, you have to find a way to navigate through from dictation to entrustment. Okay. That when they're infants, you need to dictate everything for them. They don't need to have choices. Because they don't even know what's good for them. But you somehow have to get from there to 18 or whatever age it is to where you really can't really dictate anything. But you're hoping that they will still make the same judgment calls or the same or perpetuate the same culture that you tried to raise them in, right? So that's a journey. That's probably worth another podcast.
Definitely.
But to when he's at the spot where he's now 18 and he's saying, Dad, and I probably am at the spot where I don't have the ability to limit him in it, right? And so I say to him, okay, so tell me, what do you hope that social media will give you that you don't yet have? And he's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well then until you can articulate a hope, then there's no point in putting something new into your life if you don't have any hopes associated with it.
Wow.
And so then he was able to come back after a week and say, well, and really his hopes centered around accessibility.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, then let's test it out. And then you can see if it gives you what it promised you, okay? Because you're saying it promises you these things of accessibility. Let's see how that works out. And because he has to be able to figure out for himself whether he wants to live in a place of culture that produces abundance or in the other way. And so when it comes down to all of it, just asking a better question is spiritual leadership, because it takes us out of a place of deprivation, and I believe it can put us in a place of abundance. Now, I mean, honestly, I think this is one that we could have probably 4 podcasts about just about this principle.
Yeah.
And the practices
Yep.
that follow after that. But man, I think we've gotten to a place of a good foundation with it that we can probably revisit at other times.
I love what you've said, and I love the practice of these better questions, and I think that roots us in how, because you've described something that's like, wow, this life of abundance, it sounds so good. Okay, now how do we go live that out today?
Yeah.
And it's through these questions. What am I grateful for? What am I learning? Or God, what are you teaching me right now? And then what am I hopeful for? I mean, that's it.
Yeah. So I would say if you're a guy like us that is trying, that realizes your own imperfections, but you want to do something different, and you believe that you can lead differently in your home, in a way that, man, can we take back kingdom culture? Then hopefully this is a way that we can figure it out together. So until next time.